everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant. Happy to be here with you today. Well, you guys, such a great show today. I had Sarah K. Grace on the show. And boy, we got into a lot of different things. She has quite the life story that we went into. But we talked a lot about healing, grounding, energy. She gave us incredible tips that we can use and start applying like right now. We talked about trauma, what happens when you die. I mean, honestly, we got into a whole bunch of stuff today. So I think you're really going to enjoy the show. Let me tell you a little bit about Sarah K. Grace. She was a paramedic in California's busiest 911 systems for 15 years and has been able to see, hear, feel energy outside of the normal senses since the age of 7. The stimulus tormented her until she used her abilities for good during people's worst moments. Now, as a full-time medical intuitive, psychic surgeon, and best-selling author, Sarah educates, empowers, and inspires countless people into their own gifts and greatness. This was such a cool show. I cannot wait to hear what you think. Make sure you drop a comment. You know I love to read what you guys think about the show. And here we go with Sarah K. Grace. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Sarah K. Grace.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
So happy to have you. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a lot to talk about, Sarah.
Yes, we do.
I heard you on a different show, and I was like, oh my God, I love your story. I'm trying to think. Is that where I want to start? I think we'll start there. Yeah, because you have a pretty incredible story. So let's start there. And then I want to get into trauma recovery. We're going to talk a little bit about being sensitive or an empath. We're going to get into all that too. But let's start with your story. It's really intriguing.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a ride. Definitely, definitely a thing. I was raised in the middle of a tiny town in South Dakota in the middle of nowhere, pre-internet. And that's important because at the age of 7, like I was just a normal kid, And at the age of 7, I woke up and my intuitive psychic abilities, energetic sensitivities, however you wish to call them, began to come on. And it was nothing that initiated. It just kind of, I woke up and first thing I could see auric fields and colors around people. Over the next few weeks to months, it kind of increased to feeling their feelings, knowing intentions, all the way up to seeing disease in people's bodies and ultimately spirit. So here I am, a kid. We don't have Google, right? I'm way out in the middle of nowhere. And the family dynamic, unfortunately, was such that it was very volatile and unsafe for me. So I didn't have I couldn't go to somebody and be like, hey, what's this about? Is this okay? Is this normal? Are you like this? So I sat with it for a while, but ultimately reached out to somebody with close to the family and got the shame and condemn. Unfortunately, it was don't talk about this, not okay. We're going to send you to a loony bin. So that was a pivotal moment for me because I really internalized something being mentally wrong. And that began an odyssey of shame and fear, not understanding why I was like this and just wanting, just like anybody else, just wanting to fit in, wanting to be loved, wanting to be safe. And that really began a long odyssey again, in addition to the family volatility and all of that. I went through drugs, alcohol addiction, all kinds of things, but ultimately cleaned myself up, became a paramedic, and I had moved around quite a bit, but landed in California, started my 911 career in South Central Los Angeles. And ultimately the ability to see, to hear, to feel, to know, to work with spirit, it played a big part in 911 calls. And I became the paramedic who was always there for death and as people were transitioning. And ultimately what happened, Michelle, is I was still highly closeted, a lot of fear around this. I finally fit into, something that was societally accepted. Being a paramedic is a powerful position. And I didn't want to be the weird girl who sees dead people, right? Like I wanted to just fit in, especially you gotta understand these are all alpha dog, like firefighters, dudes, So I'm just kind of run my calls and do my deal. But my experience on every call was very matrix-like. And again, nothing I was trying to do. But I started to notice synchronicities and commonalities between the different calls, between the ways of dying and what people experience, both in body and spirit. And ultimately, fast forward, I challenged that initial fear. I challenged that, like, wait a second, how could this be bad? Right? How could this be bad if I'm
Mm.
actually helping all these people in like these super crazy situations? So I decided to get educated. And fast forward 15 years, I've been educated on all of these different energetic modalities. And now I have a full-time medical intuitive and psychic surgery practice.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been an arc.
Um,
It's been an arc.
I was gonna say, okay. So you started out though as a paramedic, and talk a little bit about, so what was that like for you? So what happened when you had these abilities as a paramedic? Give me a couple examples of what that was like.
Well, very intense. And so I was in California 911 for 15 years. So very busy, volatile system and a lot of intensity. Obviously, it's the 911 system.
Yeah.
But I was, kind of one of the people who was always called to like the most critical calls and settings. And again, death and extreme trauma kind of became my wheelhouse, which it's important to note because some people are like, wow, I could never do that. And I understand. And I think we are all kind of given what we need to prep us for our gifts and where we're meant to go. And
Hmm.
that's for everybody listening, right? Because everybody's different and no need to compare gifts to different people or abilities to other people because everybody has their own unique thing. But I came from such a volatile, I came from so much intensity and chaos that the 911 system was actually very familiar to my subconscious and myself. So when I got there, I was able to just kind of swim and navigate through these really extreme situations. My personal experience, again, was consciousness expanding. Everything slows down and crystallizes. I would know 2 or 3 steps ahead what was going to happen. I knew if they were going to die or not die. And I could see the energetics of everything simultaneously. So ultimately, after hundreds and hundreds of calls, it became like a symphony. What I noticed is that there's as many ways to die as there are to live. The most important thing is that we live fully now because so many people are so terrified they bubble wrap themselves and medicate and they're just terrified to live their lives. Ultimately, we are all going to die and there's nothing to fear in it. Birth and death are natural, it's cyclical.
Hmm.
And in the moments of death, what I noticed is there's a difference between medical death and traumatic death in terms of both what the person experiences physically as well as on the energetic spectrum.
Hmm.
So, and say we have a hospice, we've got an end stage cancer person or renal dialysis, whatever. And usually what happens is they'll be in their bed and over the course of days, weeks, usually weeks, the auric field will begin to expand. So
Hmm.
you hear about the veil thin.
Yes. Yeah.
What the veil is, it's part of the human paradigm. It's intentionally there so that we kind of forget like our true nature as energetic beings.
Hmm.
And the point of being one of the points of being human, in my understanding, is again just to have the human experience, right? And so we have duality, gravity, which is not my favorite, but we have, senses and just the things that encapsulate so that we think that we're separate, right? So as we're dying and in transition, the auric field dilates, that veil thins, which means that all of the energy that's always present becomes more accessible and available to the nervous system and then to the brain, right? It's like it picks up like, oh, wait, I can see my, deceased whoever or the pet that died or whatever. We hear this all the time in NDE,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Right.
Then what I would witness upon moment of the heartbeat actually stopping, and then they'll go into agonal respirations, which is like guppy breathing, very natural. But then the chakras, and this was so beautiful to see because it starts at the base and it looks like ribbons unfurling. And it goes very slowly up the chakra channel, up the vertebral column. And I would see the soul exit out the crown of the head. And
Wow.
often, 9 times out of 10 in a medical, I
Hmm.
would see deceased loved ones. If the person was particularly religious, there would be archetype there of some sort of religious deity or whatever,
Hmm.
or pets. And so I would watch over and over and over. I've seen this so many times, but it was always very organized. Sometimes it was more rapid, but it was always very organized in terms of the energetics. So I understood after being in the trenches right there at the moment of death with somebody over and over and over, that there's a higher intelligence playing out in,
Mm-hmm.
right? The person would then like come out the crown and then be greeted by the loved ones, and they'd be like, ah, that's like a family reunion up in the corner, right? Of
Yes.
the
Yes.
room.
Yeah.
And they would ultimately transition out of view, and we would do what we had to do for body, you know, pronouncing death, starting the coroner, doing what we had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma, different deal. And you got to understand, because trauma is disorienting in that they didn't expect, right? Nobody
Yeah.
expects to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
And that's why I always go back, you guys, over and over. You're going to hear me say, just live, just live, just do it. Every single day we would see, we'd go on the call, you know, the person got up, they put their pants on, they got ready for work, they're going through the Starbucks drive-through, they come out, boom, they get T-boned, that's it. Or they get in a car accident, or they get shot, or they get whatever, right? In today's world,
Mm-hmm.
you're in your body and then you're not in your body. So it doesn't make sense to the soul. It's like, wait a second, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
So we could come on scene, say, for instance, a car accident, and I would expand and I'd be able to see the soul of the person, their body's trapped in a crumpled car, right? But the soul would be standing next to it.
Yep.
And 10 times out of 10, there would be some sort of celestial, angelic presence. And angels to me don't look like winged creatures. It's more of a consciousness, and it just blanketed the entire scene with calm, love. And it was a light, kind of a light being, very tall and gentle.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would see is we're doing the work to extricate the body, or, you know, plug all the holes from the bullet wounds, or whatever we got to do. And the soul would be like, wait a second, what's going on? And so energetically, I'd be able to just start relaying messages and be like, all right, this is, you were shot, this is what we're going to do, we're going to take you there. And so I would start this protocol process of telepathically communicating while doing CPR and getting the body going. But if they were to transition, I would see the celestial. It just was so gorgeous. I can't even tell you how beautiful it is to be in that sort of
Mm-hmm.
just, it's calm, nurturing love. It just blankets everything with this silent, quiet. Oh, it's so yummy.
Mm.
And the soul of the person that had just died would usually turn towards the frequency and then go into that, and I would watch them disappear. So I knew that they had crossed and transitioned, at which time we'd still be responsible for dealing with, you know, the body and
The
doing.
physical body. Yeah.
And so those were the two biggest variances, if you will, that I noticed after doing hundreds and hundreds of these. And ultimately, what I took, my biggest takeaways, aside from just live your life fully now, is again, there's nothing to fear. And like everything's okay,
Yeah.
right? So did that answer kind of what you're looking for as far as 911 experience?
Yeah, I'm taking notes because there's so many points I want to bring up for
Oh, I
you.
got calls for days, girl. I did that 50.
I love it. Awesome. Something that I remember with a number of my clients that I had over the years, they would talk to me about having so much fear around dying or death,
Mhm.
and it plagued them every single day.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that you know, I know there's so many other people now like coming out and talking about a lot of the things that you're talking about, but from your perspective, doing hundreds and hundreds of these,
Mhm.
seeing people die, there is no fear because there really is no end. There's an end to the physical body, but that soul just keeps going on and on and on. So I
Honestly,
love,
it's like taking off a heavy coat, truly,
yes.
for the person as they experience. And then the consciousness shifts out
Mhm.
of denser frequency into a higher frequency. It just means it's all we're doing is shifting dimension or timeline,
Yeah.
but it's not as dense. And then there's always, whether it's, you know, family or friends or religious or whatever, there's something present. And I've heard some people go into void space, but even that's nothing to be feared, because the void is the birthplace of all creation, right? So
Mhm.
ultimately, pre-conscious
Mhm.
space, will
Yeah.
timeline,
Yeah.
you will be there for a minute, and then ultimately you'll keep shifting into different levels of awareness. Yeah, there's nothing to fear at all.
Yeah. What about people that are that have died that don't go into the like again, a lot of it is with these acute deaths, like it's so traumatic. There's a car accident or they're shot, something just shocking, right? And they are thrown out of their bodies, or their body. Do people eventually find the light? Like, going I'm thinking about people that would say, "Oh yeah, they're an astral entity or they're lost here and they don't know to go to the light." Do you ever help people like find their way back into the light?
Yeah, for sure. And that's like the ghost thing, right? People are like, not
Yeah.
everybody crosses because there's ghosts. And it's like, okay, you guys, like it's outside of the tangible, timelines don't exist, right?
Yeah,
Every time
true.
we expand beyond the linear,
Mhm.
we go into more of a meta. And a lot of times the soul will hold on, be like, no, wait, really affixed or attached to a person or a place or a thing.
Mhm.
And ultimately, what my understanding is, and just in terms of what I've seen, is that ultimately there will be repeated invitations
To
for
come
that.
back to the light.
It's whether or not that the soul does it or not, and some people are cantankerous and stubborn and they're like, and so it's not like everybody ultimately has choice. My understanding and awareness through 25 years of doing this, all the spiritual stuff that I've done now, is that no fragment of the whole is ever really left behind because everything is one, right? And so there
Mhm.
may be elements, if we're just thinking of like this dimension, and a
Mhm.
being jostled out of their body, confused and hanging on to their house because dang it, they liked it and they don't want to get or clanking around or throwing candles or
Yeah.
whatever they're doing, right? But
Yeah.
ultimately, they've got the invitation repeatedly, and it's both through guides and higher awareness that does the invitation.
And there is no time when we cross over. So even though they might be a ghost in a house, and but whether they're a scary ghost or a good ghost, they could last maybe 100 or more years, but there is no time over when we cross. So they don't really, they're not aware that in 3D reality, they've been around for 100 years, it sounds like.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I have a question. So do we die on time? Is there ever like an oops, you weren't supposed to die? You weren't supposed to die till you were 90.
Mm-mm.
Talk about that.
Multiple opt-out points, and some people say there's 7 or there's 10 because again the human mind likes to put parameters. We really
Yeah.
just know how this goes, which boils down to control, right? We
Yeah.
want to feel like we have control because that makes us feel safe. But ultimately, when it comes to meta, when it comes to energetics, when it comes to
Mhm.
really, it's not linear. And so I've heard specific numbers. I don't necessarily know that there's like, oh, you have 9 opt-out options in a lifetime or
Mhm.
3. But I do know through personal lived experience, there's many times that I could have opted out of this life. Crap, too intense,
I'm out.
But I had an awareness that should I lean into my gifts and abilities? Should I come out and really speak openly about it? That I can actually help a lot of people understand their own sensitivities and make things make sense. So
Yeah.
I've hung in.
Mhm.
Uh, Nothing is, you can never ever get off path. I see this in the spiritual community often with people like, I feel like I'm off path or I'm not on path or I want to be like the knowing your purpose, of course. And again, that comes back to identity, sense of power, wanting to belong, wanting to contribute. All
Mhm.
of that's beautiful. But we tend to over spiritualize and we tend to put more work on our plates when people are exhausted anyway. So if we're trying to be like, perfect and always on path, right? Or we're always being spiritual, then ultimately we're doing ourselves a disservice. So what I would like to advocate is just like, relax, you guys. Like, everybody just relax. Let's take a breath. We can never ever be off path because what is.
Mm.
And what it is what we contribute to it with our minds. If we think this is right, this is wrong, this is spiritual, this isn't, right?
Yeah.
Then we start to attach some sort of cognitive structure to it.
Mm.
So no, it can never be like wrong.
Yeah. I didn't think so. I'm like, it's not like the same source, energy, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that's bringing the sun up at the most precise time and the tides and everything so perfectly orchestrated. I don't think that intelligence can go, oops, that wasn't their time. It's like, no, it's all divinely orchestrated. Something you've said numerous times today is live life to the fullest. I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on that. Like, what are people doing instead?
living life to the fullest means something different to everyone. And we live in such a fear-based culture. And whatever dogmatic perspective you want to associate with that is cool for whatever.
Mhm,
But ultimately, um, our culture and societal construct and media construct puts so much pressure and so much fear.
mhm,
And then we're not necessarily taught from an early age personal responsibility, accountability,
mhm.
consciousness, how to properly eat for the physical
Yeah.
body, proper, gut biome clearing, and how the colon is so important in terms of health. We could go on and on. And what we're not taught that ultimately matters, and
Mhm.
what we're taught is to look out here, be upset about what's out here, right? Stay out
Yeah.
here, take this pill or this substance or do this class. But ultimately, all that's fine, but it's noise. Because
Mhm.
what matters ultimately, and it all matters, it's paradoxical. So I'm not saying none of that matters, because it does. We're in the world, right? And sometimes we hear the spiritual people like, I have no ego, I have no whatever. But it's like, if you got sucker punched, it would still hurt, right? So
Yeah.
it's both paradoxical. We just got to keep it real, you guys,
Yeah, let's keep it real.
I just got to keep it real. So understanding that the stimulus is designed to keep your attention focused outward
Mhm,
in order to become powerful, really just cutting out the noise and
mm,
coming within yourself. And sometimes that is hard for people because it can be scary to not be distracted, because our nervous systems and our catecholamines and the hormones and everything get so addicted to the stress regulatory response.
yeah,
And we get stuck in that fight or flight and we're super amped.
yeah,
But the invitation is to diminish the noise, bring the awareness in, and then start to just connect to yourself and little stuff, right? Of like, hey, do you remember what your favorite color is?
mhm,
Do you know what like food you like, or what experiences you would like to have? What movie makes you happy? Like
mhm.
what's your favorite childhood memory? What are some, because people get so focused on scared, 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 scared over all
Yeah,
the external things that don't really impact their everyday reality. And then they disassociate and disconnect from self,
yeah,
and they forget who they are, and then they get in kind of this like lethargic state, right? And usually it's medicated. We got all kinds of stuff with all the things, foods and
mm,
addictions and all the stuff. People are
yeah,
just trying to feel okay. They're just
yeah,
trying to so that's what's happening, largely collectively. But what we're seeing is more and more people waking up. Well, what does that mean?
mhm.
It's just a remembering. It's like, oh yeah, wait a second, something else is going on here, right? Oh, look at all these synchronicities, People like me, it's easy because I can see it, I can hear it, I
Yeah,
can feel it. Like the energy is so prevalent to my all day, everyday experience.
mhm,
And more and more people are becoming more tuned into their sensitivities, being able to feel, right?
mhm.
Or just knowing, just looking at the external reality and going, wait a second, stuff isn't adding up, you know? And
Yeah,
so coming back into self, anchoring, remembering the small aspects of who you are and what you like, and then doing it. Like let yourself, if you like music, like play it, listen to it, dance. If you've always wanted to take the trip, burn the nice candles, you guys, use the nice
yes,
silver, like
yes,
to let yourself have it, as opposed to this, well, maybe someday when I've earned it, or I'm worthy, or I'm so like, whatever. It's like, no, we've arrived. This is it. We're here, right?
mhm,
So allowing self to live it,
yeah,
and different for everybody. No
mhm,
need to compare. Like I'm not one of those people that's ever interested in having a yacht, or it's like that's just not my deal. Like I find deep connection in like really great conversations like this, right? Soulful
mhm,
connections. I
mhm.
love
Yeah,
ecstatic dance. I love yoga. I love nature. I love exploring. Those are the things for me that light me up. So I go do those,
yeah.
right? And that's what I advocate for each person, and understanding that it's going to look different for everyone.
Such a great point. Don't compare yourself to anybody else.
Mm-mm.
And the way to know what we love, is to tune inward.
Mhm.
We've got to redirect back inside. I couldn't agree with you more that we're in this society or this world really where we're looking out there for validation to tell me who I am, all of the things, instead of going inward and saying the very basics. I love what you said, like, well, what's my favorite color? What do I like to eat? I think about people right before they sell a house. What do? They go and then they remodel the bathroom and the kitchen and they make it look beautiful for someone else. Do it now.
Do it now.
yourself.
Do it now. And it's the littlest things, you know, you like the cozy socks. Well, wear the cozy socks, you know, it's like, it doesn't have to be this whole big thing. And that's one of the things is again, whether it's the programming of the culture or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that time we can understand that it's there, but what are we going to do about it? Because each of us has the invitation and the opportunity to redirect, to turn off the noise, to
Yeah.
decrease the stimulus, to plug back in. And all it takes, what I advocate with the people I work with is like 10 minutes, man, 10 minutes a day. We don't got to do some big spiritual practice. It's hours long. Nobody's going to do
No.
that. People fall off that. It's like, we got to be real, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, just start to kind of think and be like, huh, like there's so much disassociation and disconnection and numbing, right? One of the other things we got to get real about is what are you doing to numb yourself and without like judgment or shame.
Yeah. No judgment, shame. Yeah.
I went way off the rails with drugs and alcohol because I was, you know, trying to find a sense of self
Hmm.
within a very chaotic world. I hadn't integrated and healed from my personal trauma and violence. And then you throw this whole high velocity, being able to see, hear, feel energy constantly thing on top of it. I just had no idea how to be. So I was numbing through all these different escapades, but ultimately that wasn't conducive to like life or happiness. Like I had an overdose and a near-death experience, and that was a big choice point for me that woke me up to get me back on path to getting cleaned up, to going into my power with this. So I don't have any like judgment around like what people are doing because I get it. And if we want a better life, we have to be willing to really be honest with ourselves. You don't got to announce it to anybody.
Right.
Just really, how much are you drinking? Is it just one glass, you know, a night, or are you doing a handle of vodka? And again, it's like, you're doing what you're doing, man, and I get it. But like, unless we're really real with ourselves, then we can't pass go in terms of starting to heal, right?
Yeah, that's something that I talk a lot about with the adult share model, which is you've got to take responsibility for your life, which means you've got to look at your life and say things like, "Wait a minute, am I numbing? Am I drinking too much? Am I in a relationship that I'm not really happy and in fact maybe I shouldn't be in this really?" We have to look at what's out there and run it through our internal, I call it your internal navigation system, which is your body or your heart.
Totally.
That will tell you, yes, no, go this way, go that way. But we're so out there. So I love these little tips that you gave us today. Thank you for all of these things.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned you had a near-death experience?
I did. And that
Oh, do
after
tell. Do
the high,
tell.
the high volatility, and I was way off the rails, drugs, alcohol, kinds of crazy behavior. And I was over it because again, I just didn't, I came from a lot of darkness and violence. And then I had this high velocity sensory experience that nobody could seem to explain to me. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm over this, like, screw this crap. And my I took too much and I had an overdose, and my experience was expanded consciousness, and I went into a very, very beautiful golden fractal state. Everything was like the warmest, most beautiful love that I could, you know, feel. And I was like, oh, thank God. No more suffering, you know? And I heard a female voice, which some people are like, who was that? It may have been my higher self and consciousness. It may have been a guide. Either way, it was for, I knew her, but I didn't know her. It's that, again, when we're out into expanded levels of consciousness, typical rules don't apply,
Yeah.
cognitive rules don't apply.
Yeah.
So she felt very familiar. And she was like, she was way more eloquent than I'm going to be, but she was like, yeah, we get it's been hard, you know, but you're not done. And I was like, screw that. I'm not, oh man, no
I'm
way.
out.
I want to go back because here I am finally feeling love. It was on maybe the first time I had felt love in my entire life. And I was like 20
Mm.
when I overdosed, right?
Mhm.
And but then she was like, we get it's been hard. And if you choose to come back, you're going to help a lot of people with this. And
Yeah.
so I floated out there for a while. And I got to this place where if you go any further, you're not going to be able to come back. And
Mm.
so I was like, all right, fine, I'll come back. And the funny thing, Michelle, is I thought because I was in a heightened state of consciousness and everything makes sense. So anybody who's done plant medicine work or Kundalini breath work, pranayama, anything that we, you know, alter our mental status and go into a higher state of awareness, everything makes sense. And it's just like, oh, there's that oneness that people talk about, right? But I came back here and I had to like pull myself up by my bootstraps, right? There was no
Mm,
map. There was no like, okay, you at a girl, you chose to come back. Now this is what you do. I still had to be,
mm-hmm,
which meant facing the train wreck that my life had become, all of the numerous addictions that I had developed, and like a lot of my resistance and outright hatred for this life and dimension. I didn't want anything to do with it.
right.
But I started the process because I was like, all right, well, obviously I can't go any further. Like I just died, right? Like I can't take it any further. So what if? So I started one by one, just removing the different substances like alcohol was easy, kicking the like smoking, just all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And really cocooned myself for a while to cut out that noise.
Yeah.
People go in program. If you need program, cool, go for that. I personally I made a decision and I just kicked and I just went through withdrawals and I went through everything. And
Mm-hmm.
then just really took stock that my life as it was not, it's not what I wanted. So I needed to make a big change. And I happened to go on a trip with a friend and I met somebody down in Florida and I moved. I got out of the Midwest. And that's how it very essential for me to extricate myself. And it's important for people to understand that because a lot of times people stay stuck or they stay stagnant, whether it's fear, whether it's whatever. But ultimately, the more we take responsibility and be like, okay, I don't know, but I just know I can't do that anymore. So when we get to that place, then we open and new energy and new experiences will
Mm-hmm.
in to your everyday. People are like, well, I can't travel, I don't have any money. Or I can't change because XYZ, right? There's always some reason usually.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand how this works, this is a holographic matrix of energetic data and information, and we're just having our human experience, which is really dictated by choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the more you choose to go inside, take responsibility, really dig around in like all of that shadow stuff is wisdom. It's gold. Like I am so grateful that I went through all of that. I mean, it was as bad as it could get. All of that made me a better paramedic, which made me a better healer. All of it like
Mm.
that goes on because I was willing to say instead of being a victim, I was like, yeah, that happened. That sucked. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And what am I going to do about it? Right.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And the other,
Nobody is coming to save you.
nobody's coming to save me.
No.
And I figured that
No.
was a hard pill to swallow. Like I really
Yeah.
wanted, and I think oftentimes people want somebody else to do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was being willing to modify changes in behaviors and taking the chances to do something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more that we go in and there was a lot of victimization in my life. And this is a pivot point. We can't pass go. If we're blaming externally or we're saying that was done, like staying in that victim. Now, again, it's both. It's paradoxical. This is not a blame the victim thing.
Right.
And it's like, okay, again, if we can just be really real about that happened, that sucked, but what am I going to do about it? One of my biggest, the violence for me was not that big of a deal compared to the energetic sensitivities. I didn't know what to do with this. I'm seeing this constantly, right? So my experience is like constantly being on acid or whatever. It's just like energetic tracers and awareness and feeling is just this constant sensory bombardment still to this day. And
Wow.
I'm so angry about it and I didn't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my biggest thing that I had to come to terms with because I had so much anger around being different, around being weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I was finally got to the place where I was like, okay, you can be mad all you want to, but this is what it is. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Change everything. And then I was like, right, whatever. If I'm a lone weirdo and this is just what it is, I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to figure out what works for me.
Yeah.
Exercise helps me ground in my body. It helps to streamline that much data. Hydration and keeping my, nervous system grounded and intact through all different kinds of practices, right? Very important. Then I took each ability one by one and started to learn about them. So my strength is seeing. I can see stuff constantly. Clairvoyance, what is that? How does the data come to me? What am I meant to see, right? So I've developed all of these protocols for things. If you feel everything, do you feel it? Do you take it on like a sponge? Okay.
Yeah.
If you do not, well, this is what you do, right? Here's ways to not take it on. No, we're not weirdos. So here, fast
Mm.
forward all these years, girl, because I see,
Yeah.
hear, feel, know, hear voices, see dead people. It's just like this full thing.
Wow. That
You're
could
like,
be so overwhelming.
yeah. Honestly, I would not wish it on anyone. And it's such an interesting thing now being where I am, because my first book, Journey into Grace, is my coming to terms with process. It's my personal,
Mm.
it's interwoven with 911 calls that I actually ran and
Mhm.
experienced.
Mhm.
That is a contract to become a scripted television series. So we've got that going, right? And now I've got clients in 48 states and 18 countries. Everybody's waking up to, well, I'm like this too in my own way. How do I navigate? What do I do? So
Mhm.
if you would have told me all those years ago that like the more I come to terms with this, the more people I can help. Like it's like it would have made sense,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I had to go through all of the experiences and I had to be willing to just kind of forge my way through, right? And
Mhm.
I'm super grateful now. It's weird to my brain to have like the thing that I was shamed and condemned for be kind of the cornerstone and bedrock of who I am and what I'm here to do and teach and bridge in terms of the mainstream and the energetic worlds. That's what I'm here to do, like in mass.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, just like you, like, and the more of us that lean into our gifts and abilities, and everybody's gifted in their own way, right? So just if you're sensitive,
Yeah.
start with what is your primary.
Mhm.
So over 15 to 20% of the world's population, I wish I would have known this.
Yeah.
15 to 20% of the world's population is energetically sensitive or gifted. What does
Mhm.
that mean? So that's about 1.6 billion people with a B. So I thought I was this lone weirdo who belonged in a loony bin. Had I known, right, there's actually a big segment of the population that would have alleviated a lot of the pressure.
Mhm.
So 1.6 billion who are willing to admit it or who know it. So the people who are not yet willing to admit or don't even know, we can easily double. So we're well into the 3 billion. Okay. So that's who
Wow.
we're talking to now. And
Wow.
then what we make over the 15 years of full-time private practice now, I've noticed a spectrum. Okay. So most sensitives are feelers. They can feel people's feelings. They can feel
Mhm.
the energy of the room. So empath.
Mhm.
So empaths feel, but they absorb, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So glad that there's, shows like you and all these other tools out there where we're talking openly about how not to, take stuff on.
Yep.
That's primary. The second leg of the spectrum is probably going to be clairvoyance, which is seeing. Then,
Mhm.
no, I'm sorry, claircognizance and precognizance, which is knowing, is the second.
Mhm. Mhm.
Clairvoyance is the third. Clairaudience is the fourth. Mediumship, channeling and mediumship are kind of neck and neck as far as what I've been able to see. But
Mhm.
that's just, relaying message from spirit and or seeing dead people specifically. But
Mhm.
just like the autistic spectrum, there's a spectrum for those of us that are sensitive. So
Mhm.
it's up to each individual to be like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I don't like being like this. Most of the sensitive people are either heavy, lethargic, carrying excess weight, endocrine issues, GI issues, depression, emotional issues.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like they know that there's more, but they can't get the oomph because they're so weighted down by
Yeah.
everybody's energy. So that's type 1, and type 2 is going to be the super tired but wired insomniac, like anxious but highly productive, those of us
Mhm.
that like run like amped. And that's another leg of the spectrum too. So if you find yourself in any of these, you guys just know you're okay. You're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. And the more that you understand energetics, each of these abilities, and learn about them one at a time while bringing it back down to like the basic stuff of learning how to ground yourself, learning how to clear your auric field and energy, learning how to run your chakras, learning how to eat for the physical body, hydrating appropriately. All
Mhm.
of those are like foundational. And then we'll look at each of the gifts and modalities and have people lean into that. So I've created Empath X, which is the real life school for the gifted. That's where I'm
Mhm.
headed in addition to the television series. And it's just time, girl. Like
Oh
we're
gosh, yes. I'm listening to you going, good Lord. Yeah, please. Thank you. Yeah. I didn't know growing up as an empath and so sensitive. And I just had an epiphany when you were just speaking. I've worked for so many years with my nervous system, with adrenal fatigue, with just generalized fatigue. And now I'm realizing, and I knew this, like I knew there's an energy drain. Um, I just think I'm so sensitive. I must not be, and maybe you can tell me. I'm like, I don't think that I'm clearing well enough. I can do the Reiki shower and take a bath and all these cute little things, but I don't think that and I'm thinking about the people listening going, yeah, I don't think I'm clearing enough either.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and because it's really it's almost an abrasive reality that we live in for people like
Yeah.
us. Dude, really? This is what we're up to? Can
It's
we
a
just
lot. It's heavy.
you
Yeah.
know, like, just
Yeah.
and so each individual is different and everything collectively is just turned on blast right now. So
It is.
collectively for the last eight plus years, this whole incarnation cycle, at least during my span, has been intense.
Yeah.
But obviously the last 6 to 8 years has just been on blast. And it's for a higher purpose. We talked about that innate intelligence. We're on a timeline that's way bigger than we
Yeah.
realize. We just happen to be going through a shift. So it's actually a pretty cool time to be alive.
Mhm.
It may not be the most comfortable. So a million different ways we can talk about however you want to, but like grounding yourself. So like basics, any sort of movement, yoga, tai chi, qigong, Epsom salt baths, cold plunges are amazing. You can do acupuncture, acupressure. You can jump up and down on a little rebounder trampoline.
Mhm.
Any of those types of, some people need ankle weights, like those old school 1980s ankle weights.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but most of our people are up here bobbleheaded because they're so
Yeah.
sort and linear. It's
I'm
like,
a
no,
bobblehead.
come on, guys, you got to buy. You feel your feet? Remember, you got feet? Come
Yeah.
on.
I remember one of my earliest teachers from 20 years ago said to our class, "Oh no, we don't want to be in our lower chakras. You just want to be high." So man, we would raise our energy high. And I was like, "No, no, no, we don't want first, second, and third chakra." Now, again, probably 10 or 15 years ago, I realized she was so off. Like it's like, "No, we have to ground. Like bring the energy down and up, but bring it down first."
And
So,
that's everything that you just said, because in order to be fully powerful in our energetic gifts, we
yes.
be willing to be in the body. Hear
Yep.
that again. In order to be fully powerful,
Yep.
to fully manifest your life and what you're here to do, you have to be willing to be down and in, because we have to be able to anchor
Mhm.
this much velocity and power in the cells. We go down and in to go up and out. We
Yeah.
all know the example of the flighty spiritual people that roll around like tumbleweeds and don't get anything actually done. That's
Yeah.
not that's fine for them. That's cool. Whatever, man. Everybody's got their thing. But like, to really be powerful in your own giftedness, the reason that most people don't want to be in their bodies is because it's uncomfortable. So
Mm.
becoming
Mhm.
okay with discomfort. 3/4 of this lifespan for me has been highly uncomfortable,
Mhm.
physically, mentally, energetically, or emotionally. And I've just gotten to the point of being like, okay, so it's uncomfortable, and go make yourself a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, get on with it, right? There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Discomfort means you're on a growth edge.
Yes.
It's indicating that you're actually progressing. When we're comfortable and stagnant and just kind of floating over here is when everything, the energy consolidates and coagulates. And that's where disease and trauma form, right? Addiction forms. And so it's okay to be uncomfortable. So grounding yourself, and here's another little tip for, people that are listening where you're like, "Ah, I still feel kind of like,
Yeah.
or whatever." So there's 6 primary hemispheres of the auric field. The
Mhm.
three primary things that you're going to want to become more versed in as you go are the auric field, the chakra channel, and the meridians.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because that's like the energy anatomy that's really conducive to perfusing our
Mhm.
energy.
Mhm.
The auric field is front, back, left, right, above, below. everybody in the spiritual world talks about front body chakras. Everybody's all
Mhm.
like out the front and out the crown and floating around and all the stuff. Well, the more powerful we want to be down here at anchor, front and back, and activating the back sides of the chakras is vital, right? Because that allows us to receive. We're so used to bleeding out the front and feeling and scanning and doing and giving, and that throws off nervous system and endocrine system, right? Then we get hormones wackadoodle, and then the GI goes, and it's just this whole cascade, right? So it's like pull your front body power back,
Mhm.
activate the back side, meaning, I mean, you can imagine being plugged in, like in the movie Matrix, where it gets plugged in. You're just being plugged into a grid of love.
And what is that? Okay, so if someone were listening now, how do we do that? You imagine plugging in like a light switch, like coming out of the auric field, plug it in, and then you see your back illuminate. Is that what
So
you would
what I
do?
would advocate first, now there's people that can visualize and people that need somatic,
Mhm.
okay? So start with just figuring out the hemispheres. So you have a front side. So if you can visualize, just visualize 3 feet off the front of your body and just tune into the front side and what it feels like. Notice the areas of constriction in the body. Notice if it feels like you're kind of like floating out here one way or another.
Mm.
Most
Mhm.
people are above their head and slightly behind. They're not in their body.
Yeah.
So just feel what it feels like. If you can't visualize, rub your hands together and put your arms out like you're holding a beach ball.
Mhm.
And then see if you can sense the tingling or the energy here, and just play with moving your arms up and down. Okay.
Mm.
So you're
Mhm.
going to start with that on the front and then do something similar to the back, at which you would just place your hands gently on the like lower sacrum or kidney area, flank area, whatever's going to work for you. And then the balancing front body, back body is very important for nervous system and endocrine regulation, as well as giving, receiving. We give and give and give and give and give, right?
Yeah.
But receiving and allowing and resting and stopping and being.
Mhm.
Culturally, it's strive, 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 go, 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 but never arrive. You notice that?
Yeah.
I call BS on that. Like,
Yeah.
because it's always keeping the carrot out to keep us exhausted and distracted and out of our power.
Yeah.
But it's like, because if people like finally arrive, then people are like, well, who do you think you are? You're narcissistic, whatever, whatever. It's like, no,
Right.
you got, it's okay to receive, right? So
Mhm.
front body, back body, left and right, masculine, feminine, yin yang, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
again, same thing, just visualize the left side, feel the somatics of the body, take some breaths, notice areas of muscular tension, notice any areas of like whatever, like we have a lot of sensitives have constipation and GI issues. So you're just going to notice any binds in the body and notice the tension in the auric field. And then
Mm.
compare it to the right side. And then
Mhm.
above the crown and below the feet. So this is just one of the cornerstone foundational things, ways that we become, you're
Mhm.
starting to tune into your own system.
Mm. Mhm.
And then as you get more adept at like front, back, left, right, above, below, and you can make it like colors if you want to visualize colors. Initially, I like to have people just tune in and notice, but ultimately you can tune in and clear. And by clearing your energy, you can do it physically in all those ways that we talked about, or you can
Mhm.
visualize it. You can say a mantra. There's a gazillion. You can sage yourself. Like there's a million ways, you
Yeah.
got, right?
Yeah.
But that's just one example of ways to become more powerful in
Mhm.
your own grid. And ultimately, the more powerful you become, the less affected you're going to be out here. So I used to be really easily destabilized emotionally, and I used to be overly emotional. And
Mhm.
I processed through all my shadow work for years and years and years. And I'm grateful that I did all of that. But now I'm like, all right, cool.
Mhm.
Good, good. In terms of needing to ground, bubble, and protect. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
That's cool, but that's like a basic. The
Yeah.
more the more tuned into self you get, you'll understand how to root in your own power, and then you fill your auric field with who you are. And
Mm.
when we go from defensive to offensive. And when
Mhm.
I just am who I am, anything that doesn't resonate just ricochets, right? So
Mhm.
I go through Costco now, and I still got to wear earplugs because it's so noisy and fluorescent
It's a
lights.
lot. Yeah, those fluorescent lights are a lot.
Right? That's a thing. Like I still do the basic stuff, but I'm like, I know who I am. I've been doing this a long time, just in terms of like remembering who I am. What do you like? What do you like to do? Well, what are your fears? What are your dreams? Bringing it back to self, bringing it back and doing your different healing experience
Mm.
journeys living your life, doing your meditations, clearing your auric field, running your chakras, flushing your meridians, all of that is
Mhm.
going to lend you to feeling more powerful in who you are. And when you're powerful in who you are, you don't gotta defend. Make sense?
Love this.
I'm
Love
all about practical, man. It's gotta, to me, it's like it's gotta land in this world. Otherwise, what are we doing?
I love
That's
it.
in
Yeah,
the medical.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I love this. Such good stuff. Um, gosh, did we miss anything? Really, really good stuff here.
Yeah. I could talk forever.
I know, I can tell. I think I want to invite you into I have a membership called the Academy of Awakening, and you would be a phenomenal guest in there. So we'll talk after.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
I think we need to have you come in and teach us a few things. So where would people find you though in the meantime?
All right. So I work with people on one-on-one sessions. I
Mm-hmm.
have an online community called the Grace Place. We've got sensitives from all over the world that are becoming empowered and strong with their gifts. And
Mm-hmm.
I also have a bunch of online books and online courses. So you can find everything at sarahkgrace.com, sarahkgrace.com. And we've got all the stuff with the YouTube and the Insta and the, all the things. And that's Sarah K. Grace Life, Life. You can find me there. I think YouTube is just Sarah K. Grace, but
Sarah Craig Grace Life. What's that?
that
YouTube?
is the Instagram, Facebook,
Got it.
and TikTok. And YouTube is just Sarah K. Grace.
Got it. Perfect. I'm just taking a note. We'll add it to the show notes. So
Great.
Sarah K. Grace is on YouTube. Perfect. Well, goodness. All right, we're going to talk then, girl, because we need to have you come on into the academy. So
I
hang
would
tight.
love.
But thank you. Thank you for being on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and much love to everybody. You got this wherever you are, man. It's all right. Just lean in.
Thank you. All right, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed that show. Again, drop me a line. Let me know how you like the show. And do not forget, come check out the Academy of Awakening.com. This is my new online community. It is all about learning to live in your true self. Let me tell you what, your whole life will change when you live in your true self. And I'm going to explain to you exactly how to do it. I'm taking you through a process of awakening. It is an incredible journey. We have amazing people part of this community, and I would love for you to be one of them. So check it out at the academyofawakening.com, and I'll see you seated right here next week in the adult chair.